Now guys, listen closely. Trey, why'd you abort your dive?
Sinus pressure right here.
Robbie, why'd you abort your dive?
I got cold.
Now ask me why I aborted my dive. This dry suit, it's not dry. She is full of water. And it was 54 degrees down there. So sometimes you have to abort your dive because it's actually not fun. In today's video, that's what we're going to talk about. Is how you know when to make that decision to abort a dive versus continuing on diving and it not being fun. What's up guys, it's Brian again from Lake Hickory Scuba Marina. If you're new to our channel, do me a huge favor. Hit this little subscribe button right here and ding that little bell as well. That way you guys are going to be notified every time we upload new content. Now, if you couldn't tell by the teaser, in today's video, we're going to be talking about aborting dives. And how do you know when to make the decision to actually abort a dive? Because we just did that. We had 3 of us going down just to make a fun dive. We're going down about 65 feet. And we was planning on anywhere between, say, a 40-minute to an hour-long dive. Trey here, he had to cut his dive very short. Basically, as soon as he got in, he aborted and jumped out. And then, of course, me and the other diver, we made about 16 minutes and then we both aborted. But I'm going to tell you the story behind each abortion that we did, and then I'll kind of give you some pointers on how you can prevent yourself from having to abort. But I also want you guys to understand it's okay to abort a dive if you need to. So Trey, tell everybody, if you can, why you chose to abort the dive as soon as it started.
So I went down about 3 feet and I had sinus pressure right in here that felt like my head was going to explode. And I tried going back down after clearing my nose and I still couldn't do it. So I aborted just to be on the safe side.
Absolutely. And we always want to be safe there. If you're not feeling a dive, abort it. If you don't feel comfortable, abort it. If you don't feel healthy enough, abort it by all means. As far as my dive goes, it was a beautiful dive. Visibility wasn't all that good, but I was okay to limited viz. And the temperature really wasn't as cold as what some people think. It was between 50 to 52, which for us is still warm to us. I was in a dry suit, had plenty of undergarments. The problem was my dry suit had a catastrophic failure and it filled up with water. So even though 50, 52 degree water is not that cold if you have the proper undergarments, when all of a sudden your suit fills up with water, there's a shock factor there. So I got pretty cold. And then our third dive buddy that was with us, his suit thankfully didn't leak, but he didn't have the right thickness of undergarments, so he got pretty cold as well. So we were able to just go ahead and make that abortion, come on up to the surface. But let me give you some pointers on how you can prevent having to abort a dive and still make a safe dive. In Trey's case, he could have waited a couple extra days. Trey's coming off the crud, and he could have waited a couple of extra days, waited till the sinuses got a little bit better. Yes, you can take medication, you can take Sudafed, stuff like that, help clean out your sinuses, but it's always best to wait just a couple extra days, make sure it's all out of there, and you'll be fine. As far as me, I got to find out why my suit leaked. I don't know if I've got a hole in it. I don't know if I had a zipper failure, but I got to figure out what it is. So maintaining your equipment is going to help you from having to abort a dive. And in, of course, Robbie's case, he should have just wore thicker undergarments. But there's plenty of things that we can do to make sure that we're going to dive safe and have a good, enjoyable dive and not have to cancel it at any given time. But what if you do? What if you have to make that decision? When do you make the decision? Do you do it at the beginning of the dive like Trey did? Do you do it halfway through a dive like we did? Well, it just depends. In Trey's case, he didn't really have much of a choice. He couldn't go down. He couldn't equalize. He couldn't get his sinuses to clear out. In my case, I started out, had a very awesome dive for the first, say, 10 minutes or so. The next 5 or 6 minutes, things got really wet and really cold really quick. So it's one of those things where you just got to make that determination. You know, could I have lasted a little bit longer? Sure, absolutely. But I looked at my buddy. I told him, hey, get a little chilly. He looked at me, said he was chilly. So we made that determination right then and there. We're just going to abort the dive, come on up to the surface. You know, if you decide to stay a little bit longer, you need to know what your personal limitations are. Let's say I would have had an absolutely perfect dive here. I had no problems with my dry suit, didn't have any troubles with my sinuses, nothing of that sort. But I look over at my buddy and I can tell he's telling me he's cold, he's shivering and things like that. You might want to make sure that you abort the dive if your buddy needs to abort as well. So there's many different reasons and time frames when you want to make that decision. And the last thing I want to leave you with here, there's no shame in aborting a dive. Guys, I have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and upon thousands of dives that I've made in my career, and I have hundreds and hundreds and even more thousands of dives that I've canceled mid-dive, or even I've canceled before that dive. It's okay. We want to make sure that we're safe. We want to make sure we're properly equipped, we're properly trained to make the dives that we're making. And if we're not having fun, if we're not enjoying it, get out of the water. There's always going to be another time for us to actually go diving. So don't ever be ashamed or feel bad about actually aborting a dive. If you need to abort it, by all means, abort that dive. But guys, I know this is kind of a short video, but I want you guys to get the message here. It is okay not to go diving if you can't. It is okay to stop a dive mid-dive or stop a dive for any reason. Don't ever risk yourself. Don't ever risk your dive buddy. Just because you paid a ton of money to go on a trip, just because you drove hours and hours and hours to get to a dive site, sometimes things happen and we just have to roll with it. So that's going to do it for today's videos. Anything you want to leave them with, Trey?
If you're not feeling it, it's fine to cancel. Like you said, we drove 2.5 hours here today. I was in the water for 5 minutes, hauled all my tanks back up and said that it's not worth going. If you're not feeling it, don't go. It'll be fine.
Yeah, but we still had a great time hanging out together. Awesome food, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we just got left a restaurant. Absolutely amazing food. By the way, if you're wondering where we were at, we went up to a place called Gray Quarry. We come up here a lot. It's in the mountains of Tennessee. It's near the Kingsport area, and there's a place called Cootie Brown's. I'll link all their information up here for you. It's an absolutely amazing restaurant. They've got 2 or 3 different locations here. They got every food known to man. It's an awesome little pub type, and my belly's full. I don't know about yours, but my belly's definitely full. I'm no longer cold, I'll tell you that. But guys, once again, if you got to abort a dive. There's no shame in it. Even as a dive professional, he's a dive master. I'm an instructor trainer. We abort dives when we have to. It's not that big a deal. Don't ever be ashamed. Don't ever let your buddy shame you, or don't ever let somebody else shame you for not going diving. There's many different reasons, whether it's health reasons, whether it's an equipment failure, whether you just don't feel this dive is going to be a safe dive, then abort it. It's okay. But if you got any questions, comments, concerns, drop me a comment down below. We'll try to discuss it. And if you've ever aborted a dive, let me know down in the comment section below why you aborted it. But guys, that's going to do it for today. Until our next one, take care. God bless. I'll see you in the next video.